Welcome back to the next episode of Trade Talk. We have Trey Tucker here with North Central Florida Air Conditioning again. Last time he was with us, we did a lot on indoor air quality and talks about filters and things, and we got a lot of questions online that rose out of that. Indoor air quality and filters during like cleaning or a checkup. And I just thought at the time, all these questions that came in, people were saying the same thing, but they were using different terminologies. Like, you guys ask about, hey, I have a system checkup, should they check my filter? Or someone said something about, every year I get my system rejuvenated or tuned up or cleaned. And the different questions that came in made me think that there's a lot of verbiage going around out there, and they seem to be confusing, at least in the questions, on what is actually being asked. So I thought, what better? Bring the expert back, have them clarify, what is a checkup? What is a cleaning? What is a tune-up? What is a rejuvenation? Those seem to be the four things that kept coming up. So if you're comfortable, we're going to dive right in. If I called you out and said, hey, I need you to do a checkup, what, as a professional, does that tell you to do for me?
So a checkup is just that. And to circle back just a little bit to the basis of the question, it's not surprising there's a lot of confusion. There's a lot of marketing going on surrounding what we're talking about right now. And so a lot of people use a lot of different terms to describe varying degrees of in-depth checkups, tune-ups, cleanings. They're just, a lot of words are thrown around and a lot of it's marketing. And so a checkup is kind of the base level of where we start. So we're doing just that. We are checking everything. We're checking the function, checking the state of the system, how well is it running, but what are some things that we can do to help it continue to run better, and also how is it running right now. So we're checking amp draws, how's it cooling, how is it heating, how does the filter look, how does the coils look, and we may have some recommendations at the end of that so we can do better things. But the checkup is just that. We are checking the system.
So if I put it, and I hear you correctly, correct me if I'm wrong, because I'm wrong quite a bit. That's why I bring you guys on.
Okay.
A checkup is giving recommendations to the homeowner for the next step. It's not like if you notice the system isn't operating correctly, you're not repairing it then. If you notice the filter isn't bad, you're not putting a new filter in. If you notice the indoor air quality is poor, you're not correcting it. You are looking it over, making a list for me. Hey, you came in, this is what I found. Kind of like if I see, hey, a 16-point checkpoint, your brakes are bad, something else is good. They didn't fix my brakes. They just gave me a report that said, this is the 16 things I checked up, and this is where we're at.
Yeah, I like the car analogy because, obviously there's far more people that do their own car maintenance and they keep track of the cars a lot better than do their air conditioning system. So I like that. It would be, if I take my truck in to get an oil change, they do give me like a 14-point or a 38-point checklist, or checking everything. They'll tell me the PSI of my tires. They'll say, hey, your air cabin filter needs to be replaced in the next couple of visits. They're kind of preparing me for the next steps of maintenance. How is it running now? Back to the AC side, exactly what you said. That's a perfect example of what we do. There have been instances where we come in and peace of mind is huge. This equipment that we're working on keeps you comfortable, and for some of our customers, keeps you alive. There's plenty of customers we have that if we're not cooling the house down right, they can have help. They can have health problems with that. So there are times where I personally and some of our guys have looked at systems, and there's nothing that we really recommend. It's been well maintained. They wanted some peace of mind going into the heating season, going into the cooling season, and they needed a checkup for the peace of mind. So on one hand, we might check everything and give you the A-OK, or maybe we give you an A-. There's a few things that we could do better to make it work just a tad bit better, but nothing pressing. But yes, back to your other point, what is more common is we do find some things that we like to see addressed, and we give you that list. We're not doing those at the time. Very small point, different companies do different things, right? But at North Central Florida Air Conditioning, if I'm doing a checkup and you have a filter there, I'm changing $50. So I come out for a checkup. We're not trying to
If I
charge
give you a
you.
filter, since you pulled it out, you might as well.
Of course. So I know that's a small point, but we're not those people.
All right. So if I got my house, I could use you before I turn my heat on because it's gas. Come in, just check it off every year before I turn it on, just to make sure we're good. That's a good use of a check.
That is a great use of a checkup, and so it's fairly similar to the same thing, but we do just general checkups, but then like a specific safety check, which is kind of the same thing that we're doing on a regular checkup, but it's kind of when you do it. So before you turn your heat on, let us come in, let us check everything safety-wise. So it doesn't matter if you have gas or electric heat. We're going to check on the electric heat. We're going to check all the electrical connectors, make sure nothing's melting, burning, pulling too many amps, something that's starting to fail that might cause some sort of safety issue later on in the heating season. Same way on gas. Do we have a cracked heat exchanger? Is the flue hooked up properly? Is the flame acting the way it should? So there are some safety concerns. So safety portion of a checkup is huge, specifically in heating, but in general, checkups address all of those things.
All right, so now let's go to the next thing that people ask the same kind of thing with cleaning. If I called you for a checkup and I'm like, hey, but you didn't clean anything, what's the difference if I call you out for a cleaning compared to like a check?
Yeah, it's a great and fair question. So when we're doing a cleaning, we go through very, very similar process to the checkup. We're checking where everything's at, performance-wise, what can we do to make this run better, but we're also going a little bit more in depth. We're going to rinse out your condenser. We're going to at least do a light treatment of the indoor coil. We're wiping everything down. Believe it or not, how your AC system looks can affect the performance. And it's nothing to do with the visual of it, as much as getting the dirt out of your outdoor unit, getting everything wiped down so your air quality is a little bit better, especially depending on where your AC system's at. But getting any of the debris, the critters, the amount of lizards, and I found a squirrel in an AC system a few times, a whole squirrel. One was in a flue and the other one was in the electrical compartment. He had a bad day. So we need to get those out so we don't have corrosion. We don't have higher head pressures because the airflow is not right. So we're actually cleaning things. We're being more hands-on. We're changing things with the system to make it run better with a regular clean. So I don't know if that explains what you're asking.
It does. So what I'm hearing you say is like a checkup can be done before the heating season, make sure we're safe. A cleaning, probably you're using to get rid of all the dust and grime from that season. So it's kind of like a post-season.
Yep.
It ran through the season, now you want to get it cleaned and get it ready for the next time. So almost some of the things you described, I could probably do myself. You're hosing things off, you're wiping it off.
So feel free as a homeowner to do that. Keep your stuff, clean. We talk with our homeowners all the time about treating drain lines specifically with vinegar, not bleach. I know that's I don't want to call it controversial, but I've heard everybody say that their guys told them one thing or the other. Use something that's not corrosive on your drain line when you're cleaning your AC system. Outside, absolutely. Rinse the dirt away from underneath your condenser. Use just regular water and rinse your coil out. Help that airflow, help it drain, keep everything clear of it, keep the leaves off of it, keep that corrosion down. You can do that as a homeowner. Take the right safety precautions. Either pull the breakers if you're comfortable with that, but specifically just be safe while you're doing it. But you can absolutely clean up your own system, wipe down the outsides of the cabinet, keep leaves clean and clear. I wouldn't, unless you have some background in electrical and you do cut the breakers, taking electrical panels off can be dangerous. So we're not necessarily recommending that level of cleaning, but yeah, this is your equipment. You can keep it clean yourself, or you can call us and we'd be happy to do that.
All right, so then the next thing that you guys talked about or that they wrote in about is tune-ups. So until they asked, I really never considered the difference between a cleaning and a tune-up. I kind of considered it hand in hand, but as the questions came in, I'm like, actually, that makes perfect sense. There are differences between cleaning and tune-ups, and I just kind of went back to my car. I bring my car in for a tune-up, and they wash and wax it and give it back to me. I'd be like, you didn't understand. Or if I brought it into, a cleaning, and they changed the oil and gave it back to me, I'd be like, you didn't understand. And I guess I didn't understand. So A tune-up for a system makes sense that would be different. So what is a tune-up?
That's more marketing in a good way. You know, all these things have meanings. Typically, when we do a tune-up, it does involve some cleaning, and not for aesthetic purposes, for it to look better, but going back to cleaning and clearing those coils, getting better airflow. But to go even deeper, we're adjusting things when it comes to a tune-up. You know, maybe the static pressure is a little high. We need to adjust the airspeed, and certain AC systems can do that. Some can't, depending on what level you're at. But we're adjusting things. We can adjust airflow. We can adjust refrigerant charge. We can change out components that might not be working as well. So if you go in for a tune-up, you might end up with new spark plugs. You may not, depending on how old they are. So there are components, start assist, fans, fan blades. We can change the filter like we talked about last time, up to a 5-inch if it's not acting right. So a tune-up can involve changing and adjusting components to help it run better longer. So better efficiency, better reliability, more peace of mind in general. So that's more of what a tune-up would be. But specifically to a point, what I will say is if you call us out for a checkup, you're going to know what that price is. At the end of it, you're going to have some points that you may want to address, or at least some peace of mind that everything's, you know, a-okay. And that's going to cost, you know, one amount. For a cleaning, typically the same thing. You might have some recommendations at the end of it, but you're going to know what that costs. The tune-up, you'll know what that costs to call us out. If we have to adjust the refrigerant, or if we have to change out any components, then those are extras. We don't do that without first talking to the homeowner, but it can be more in depth, but we always give that option. But I don't like to surprise anybody that what you get.
So you're building on top of it. So
Yes.
I do a checkup, you make me a list of what I need. In that list, it may say everything's great, just needs a little cleaning. I can do that myself, or I can say, you know what, while you're out here, do the cleaning. And then you do the cleaning, and that's fine. And then later on, a couple seasons, a year or two down the road, I'm like, man, it just doesn't feel like it used to feel like. That's when the tune-ups come in. You come in and you start adjusting things. You bring it back to like a factory spec. You bring it back to factory levels, or you bring it back in the line. And I go, wow, this is feeling much better now. There's a more active approach. Now, someone wrote in, like, there's this other level called rejuvenation, and I hear that, and I'm like, man, I don't know if I want to do that. What would you call a rejuvenation?
A rejuvenation. A rejuvenation would be very similar to a tune-up, but we're going a little bit more in depth, much deeper, where we are going through everything with a fine-tooth comb. You know, we're trying to bring that up to not only factory spec. Back to that last point on the factory spec, there have been times where we've been called out to, and we do not tear down this company. There's some other great companies. We like to think we do a different level and a better job than most, and we pride ourselves on that. But we've came out specifically like new construction homes where they were put in on contractor grade equipment, lowest bid jobs. We've actually came out and done tune-ups or specifically rejuvenations, and we brought these units working better than they were the day that they were started by those companies. Out of town, South Florida companies coming through doing tract homes. We come through, we do a tune-up or a rejuvenation, and we're adjusting things that they didn't take the time to do on the original startup because it was low bid work. Nothing against those, those companies. So a rejuvenation can not only bring you back to factory spec, but you might have a system working better than it's ever worked because they didn't fine-tune that refrigerant charge. They didn't fine-tune the airflow. They didn't fine-tune maybe even some of the duct work, which is a little bit step beyond that. And it's been running a 1-inch filter. We add a 5-inch filter. We rejuvenate this back to where it really needs to be. We deep clean, we go back in, we rinse out and the outdoor condenser. Let's make sure that this thing works as best as it possibly can.
Okay, so on like a rejuvenation, if I'm maintaining the system like I'm supposed to, and I have you, getting to that rejuvenation level probably is not something I need to get to. But let's say I go and I buy a house, a new to me house, but a used house. I have no idea what the homeowner, and if they had cats or dogs or incense or whatever. That may be the time, like calling you out for a checkup that may be okay.
Yep.
But reality is, I need to call you out, and you need to start pulling things apart. You need to pull things out. I've even seen on your videos and stuff where you've taken like oils and set them in driveways and like pressure clean these things. They were so bad.
Yeah, absolutely. And so that is the other portion. I think that one of the, I don't want to call it the most common misconceptions, because there's a lot of misconceptions, but there's
a whole nother episode.
Absolutely. So, and I'd be happy to come back to that. So you just let me know. So the tune-ups, the cleanings, the rejuvenations, there is a level, and sometimes they can be involved in the rejuvenation process, is a deep cleaning. And that can be really in-depth, cleaning things in place, but a lot of times what that can entail is what we call the pulling cleaning. You just mentioned it, where we're removing entire coils from like your indoor. We're pumping the system down. We're capturing the refrigerant, so we're not venting that to the atmosphere. We're not losing refrigerant, much of any at all. And then we're cutting that loose. We're pulling that completely. It's heart surgery for the system almost. We're pulling that outside where we can actually get to it, taping everything up, and then we're really, really bringing that coil back to almost new, if not as good as new. And it's very time intensive. It's very labor intensive. It's not a cheap or easy process, but you can have basically a brand new system if you really pull the components out, take them outside, treat them, clean them, get everything back where they need to be. We do have to reinstall that. There's some hot brazing that's involved with that. It's almost like a full install for that coil. So it's very in-depth. And when you would need something like that, typically is when you haven't had that system maintained. We're fixing the fact that you haven't had proper maintenance, tune-ups, checkups.
Or it's new to you. You don't know what they've done.
Exactly. So you haven't done it, or you end up in a house where they haven't done it. But we're fixing the lack of maintenance at this point when we're doing something that in-depth.
Right. So there's your questions. The difference, 4 or 5 different levels here. So in a nutshell, wrapping it up how I understand it, and again, correct me if I'm wrong. Preheating season, pre-turning my heater on.
Safety check.
Safety check.
Yeah.
Yep, that's perfect. Probably doesn't make sense to do a safety check before cooling season. There's not as big of a safety concern in that.
Typically no.
Seasonally, after the season, I want to get a cleaning, either myself or someone else come in to do cleaning. You get all whatever, I mean, it ran hard.
Absolutely.
So you get it cleaned before you put it away for the shoulder season or something like that. And then a tune-up is when the system, isn't necessarily performing, or I feel like, hey, I need a deeper level of someone to come in and start adjusting fan speeds or refrigeration level. And then you get into the deep cleaning, rejuvenation, when none of that's been done, unknowns or new to me kind of levels. All right, so frequency, checkups maybe once a year before heating.
That's what we recommend.
Cleanings, yourself or a professional, each season, so twice a year, the heating season, the cooling season, at the completion of that.
And having, going back to your earlier point about homeowners doing themselves, rinsing out your own coils, treating your drain lines, treat your drain lines when you change your filters. So, between a month to 3 months, depending on, what kind of filter you have.
And that's putting the vinegar down the drain.
Absolutely. So treat those drain lines far more often. That's a cleaning you can do. If you rinse your own condenser out, if you wipe down your own equipment, you keep the leaves clear twice a year, that's awesome. And we can come in and do it once a year, or even back to the next portion of that, which would be like your tune-ups. Typically what we recommend is every other year. So there doesn't make sense to maintain a 6-month-old car. It's very similar on an AC system that's brand new. Doesn't make sense for us to come back in 6 months and do any kind of tune-up or deep cleaning of any kind.
If it's out of tune 6 months in,
yep,
I probably had a problem with the instant.
Absolutely. If that's from us, we're more than happy. We're more than happy to make sure that's right off the rip. No doubt. But outside of that, what we recommend is 2, 4, 6, and 8, then 10. After 10, typically with most manufacturers, with the exception of Daikin, 10 years is your warranty. We believe that manufacturers typically know something we don't. After 10 years, the mechanical wear and tear typically starts building up at the decade mark. So then it makes sense to at least do it once a year, possibly 2 times a year after the 10-year mark. So on tune-ups, 2, 4, 6, 8, and 10. After 10, once to twice a year, depending on where you're
at. And that's that next level where you're actually going in and making adjustments.
Yes, absolutely. Cleaning, we can do that once a year. You can clean and keep everything clear.
So 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. So every other year, have someone come in, make the adjustments so I get my longevity out of it. And then at the 10-year mark, if you catch it before it breaks, then I can prevent further things. So back to the car analogy. My brakes are squealing, my brakes have failed. You want to catch it at the squealing part before the failure part. So the tune-up twice a year on older systems is to stretch that out. So if I do it to your model, how long are you seeing these systems last for?
It's a great question. If you do everything we've talked about today, it is not unheard of to see these systems last 15 to 20 years. I can tell you that's highly uncommon in systems that haven't been maintained. In Florida, you go to Utah, and they last forever, it seems like. But in Florida, with the salt, with the amount of miles that we put on systems in the summertime, 15 to 20 years is a long time, but if they're properly maintained, you're checking amp draws and pulling motors before they fail to cause more problems. You're keeping up on top of your start assist, so you're not putting wear and tear on your fan motors and compressors. We've seen these last 15 to 20 years, and that's not completely unheard of or even uncommon. It is uncommon to find customers that have had proper maintenance the entirety of the life of the unit. But 15 to 20 years, we've seen those, no doubt.
All right. And then the last thing that we got and what we heard is warranties requiring tune-ups. Warranties requiring cleaning, but parts were not honored or warranties weren't honored because they weren't cleaned. Have you heard about that?
That is absolutely very, very, very common. So some manufacturers, we won't go into that today, but some manufacturers use it as a way to not have to replace expensive parts under warranty. So some of the components in the AC system are astronomically expensive. Within the first 10 years to 12 years, depending on the manufacturer's on the hook for the parts warranty. There's some fine print in the actual warranty paperwork that will void that warranty if it's not properly maintained with a record of proper maintenance. So I've definitely heard of that. I've seen it happen specifically through certain manufacturers that 100% they will and can void your warranty if you don't do some of the things we're talking about. You'll be in year 7 of your ownership of this system. You'll have a $1,200 part that should be covered. Well, produce the maintenance records. And maybe you have 1 record of ever getting it maintained, or maybe you have 0, and they will deny your warranty claim. So absolutely.
When you say they, it's not you denying it.
No,
you're not warranting.
It's better for us because we keep a better relationship with the customer to have something covered under warranty. I love the fact of coming to a customer saying, hey, this would have been this much, but luckily, you kept it properly maintained, you chose the right manufacturer, you chose the right company, and they're going to take care of this portion, which can be a large sum of money. That makes me feel better and the company feel better. So nothing to do with us we'll go to bat for you, but there's only so much we can do if we don't have a maintenance record and the manufacturer asks for that. And they can absolutely void the warranty and deny the claim. And
that's manufacturers. I've heard them do that for home warranty companies. You have a home warranty company, you get called out, and the first thing the home warranty company asks is, that looks like it was a maintenance issue, we're denying it. So having that documentation, keeping that documentation, either using the same vendor over and over again with a relationship, having a contract with them, or keeping a binder next to the unit. I mean, I love seeing these people online. They've got their binders there, they have a contract when they bought it, they have all their maintenance records in there. They're amazing.
That's a great idea.
I'm not that person.
No, me neither. That's a great way to do it. I love those customers too. And on the flip side of that, not being that like you said, neither one of us are, I'm sure, but we keep those records in-house.
You as a company, North Central Florida Air Conditioning.
Yes, we keep those in-house digitally. If you need that for yourself and you dealt with us, you call us, we can provide that for you, no problem. You've paid for those, we just happen to have the records, and we would love to provide those if for some reason you need them. If you're dealing with us and we're going to the manufacturer, then we can provide those from us. There's no fuss on your side about providing any kind of records from your home or from your binder. Keep those for yourself for your peace of mind, that's awesome, but we keep track of what we've done and when we've done it.
Yes. All right, so that answers your questions. Safety checks, cleanings, tune-ups, rejuvenation, and taught me new things, deep cleaning. So maybe there's a level 5 out there, and brand new system, I guess we could call level 6. Keep them coming in. We will continue to answer those questions for you. I'm sure this will motivate another episode, so I am sure I'm going to see you soon.
Thank you, Ray.
Appreciate it.
Appreciate you.